Good morning to all our shareholders and investors in Australia. This is another AZL webinar, but this one's a little bit more exciting because we are at the Lithium Research Centre, and this centre is really world class, and what Brett is creating here is absolutely sensational. Every time I get over here, he's got more equipment being delivered, and we are operating in a difficult environment post-COVID with delivery times, etc. But it's really coming on well, and we're very happy that we made the decision to build the Lithium Research Centre in Tempe, just near the airport in Phoenix. And we are very much an Arizona-focused company. I have been in the US for quite a period now, and I was a guest at the CEO Forum, a guest of the governor of Arizona, the new governor, Katie Hobbs. And there was 150 CEOs at that function, and it was a great networking event, and we let everyone know about Arizona Lithium and the Big Sandy project and the Lithium Research Centre. So it just goes to show how Arizona is such a pro-business state. We're very lucky to be in Arizona and having the project abutting the I-93 with all the infrastructure that's in Arizona, a very large mining state, the fourth or fifth largest copper producer in the world. And that CEO conference did culminate in an invite in the governor's box to the Super Bowl, and everyone would have seen that. It was a very close game. So it was my first Super Bowl, and it was very exciting. But back to business, we've been developing up the Lithium Research Centre, and during this week we've had the 4 executives of Prairie Lithium out at the Lithium Research Centre. I decided to call a strategy session because the shareholders will approve the Prairie Lithium, well I hope they will approve, on the 14th of March, and that notice of meeting has gone out to shareholders, and I hope you review that notice of meeting and vote positively for it. The 4 executives that came down, 3 of them have not been to the Lithium Research Centre, and Brett took them out to the Big Sandy project today to look at the project. They're very excited about the Big Sandy project. We're very excited about the Prairie Lithium project, and we threw around a lot of ideas and developed up a strategy of how we're going to merge these 2 companies and take advantage of all synergies that exist with these 2 advanced projects. They're both basically development projects. So a lot of excitement around this week, and the Prairie Lithium guys are back to Canada tomorrow with lots of ideas, and after the shareholder approval, completion will occur a few days later, and we'll go straight into fast-tracking the development of both projects. I'll just ask Brett to sort of talk a little bit about the Lithium Research Centre and what he's been doing here. We have had some shareholders actually come to Arizona and look through the Lithium Research Centre. So if you ever find yourself here, get in contact with Brett and he'd be happy to show you. It's a lot more than just a Nikola truck. So some shareholders have been criticising me, saying all we've done is bought a Nikola truck. There's a hell of a lot of work going on other than just purchasing a Nikola truck. So I'll hand over to Brett and he'll just give us an update on the Lithium Research Centre.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you, at least virtually, to the Lithium Research Centre. We've received all of our laboratory equipment to date, and we start the commissioning process for the laboratory beginning of March. It will take 4 weeks, and we will be fully operational laboratory in April. So we'll be analyzing ore and performing bench scale studies. The larger equipment, where we process 1,000-kilogram lots of ore, will sprinkle in here through the spring and into the summer. But we'll be plenty busy doing bench scale studies and working with the laboratory equipment for many months, at least into the summer.
So the Lithium Research Centre does give us the opportunity to partner with other companies that don't have these sort of facilities. They will be world class, and they could and should really bring forward investment opportunities for Arizona Lithium and allow us to maximise the value that we've expended on the Lithium Research Centre. So we're excited about that opportunity. Some of those opportunities really are the Prairie Lithium acquisition. We did send a sample of our material from the Big Sandy project, and it was treated by Prairie Lithium. The results were very encouraging. And now that we're merging the group, those synergies will come to fruition. Let's talk about the Prairie Lithium acquisition. It's a very good team of lithium executives based up there in Canada. They have 4.1 million tonnes of LCE in the inferred category. So a very large resource. If you compare that to industry peers like Lake, it's right up there. It was a private company, had some difficulties raising funds, and lithium research is an expensive business. So now they're partnering with Arizona Lithium. We have the ability to raise funds and fast track that development. You might say, what's the development? Because they have a resource. Yes, they do have a resource, a large resource that can be grown. But how do you monetize that lithium that's in the ground as a brine? You have to bring it to surface, filter it in some way, and then re-inject it back into the ground. So from an ESG point of view, it's an extremely positive way to produce lithium. And that filtration system we call direct lithium extraction, or DLE. And there's a number of groups developing up DLE. Lake are talking about DLE with an external group, but Prairie have been developing up their own DLE technology. It's come a long way. And Brett's past history in lithium, which I'd like him to talk about in a few minutes, will be a huge advantage for the combined group. If we could break that code on direct lithium extraction and start producing on a small scale, granted, in a modular format, we could start producing very quickly, because you're working in an area that it is a historic oil and gas area in Saskatchewan, in Canada. And it's on the prairies, it's very flat. All the owners are used to trucks going back and forward and having a little bit of infrastructure at surface. And they do have a very high water cut. For people who are familiar with oil and gas, that really means that you're pumping brine with a little bit of oil in it. We're going to pump from a different formation, water with a little bit of lithium in it. So from a permitting point of view, that will not be any different to the oil and gas, which has been historically produced in this area. So that we saw as we completed due diligence on this acquisition, and the fact that we can develop the project in a modular format. So therefore, you're talking about a capital cost of $20 to $30 million to effectively prove the concept. So you put the DLE technology into the field and you produce either lithium sulfate or lithium carbonate at the head site, the well site, and then you re-inject the material. So somewhat simple and somewhat simpler than the Big Sandy lithium project, but not one that people are currently producing from. There's a lot of people in the industry talking about DLE breakthroughs, and we look forward to those breakthroughs, and we look forward to our own DLE breakthrough. If that does not come, we're quite happy to use third-party groups to produce our material using direct lithium extraction. So it's not a, we basically have a foot in both camps. So we can talk to other organisations that are developing up their DLE technology. And of all the lithium conferences I go to and reading on lithium, I really see that the brine space and direct lithium extraction is one that will grow the lithium output and go a long way to filling the supply shortfall, because we all know about the demand that is here now for the EV revolution, and we know that is only growing. In Arizona, it's very obvious. You see a lot of Tesla cars, other electric cars, cell manufacturers turning dirt, building plants in this state. So I've been quoted previously as saying that I don't know if this material will ever leave the state of Arizona. when we go into production of Big Sandy, if there was any refining capacity, we could sell it straight to the cell producers. So that's extremely positive for the Big Sandy project. And I just asked Brett to talk a little bit about his past history. Has been exposed a lot to direct lithium extraction, and that will be a huge advantage as we develop up the Prairie Lithium project.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So talking about direct lithium extraction, I actually designed and managed the very first pilot facility for direct lithium extraction over 10 years ago. It's before we called it DLE, which has been the buzzword now in the business for about the last maybe 3 or 4 years. Since then, I've been involved with 4 projects, designing and managing the pilot plant. Most recently, I developed the original pilot plant for Thacker Pass for Lithium Americas that got us to the record of decision. So this would be my my 4th one, and it's a wonderful opportunity. It's the nicest research center I've ever worked in. It's got the best equipment that I've ever used in my career, and I would expect that it's going to be the best data of any of the prior projects I've been involved with, designed with, or engineered. So we're really looking forward to it. We've got a very good team here that we built, and the equipment is finally starting to come back in, arrive after orders, being placed in August, September of last year. And we're really looking forward to get going here in March with all the vendors that are going to arrive, help us get the equipment calibrated and commissioned. And then we're off and running in April. So we're really looking forward to that.
Thanks, Brett. If we talk a little bit about the Big Sandy project, we are a sedimentary project, and Brett previously built the pilot plant for Thacker Pass, which is Lithium Americas, and there's been some news recently in regards to the development of that project, with GM putting in $650 million into that project, because lithium sedimentary projects can produce large quantities of LCE on a per annum basis. And it was very encouraging for us to see the investment by GM. Our project is geologically very similar to the Thacker Pass project, but they have been working on that project for about 25 years. I found the project about 7.5 years ago. So they got a bit of a jump on us, but with the Lithium Research Centre, fine-tuning the flow sheet and knowing exactly how we're going to produce the material, we can fast track the development and the production at Big Sandy. The IRA, or Inflation Reduction Act in the US, shareholders would have read about that. That is massive, and there'll be more encouragement by the American government, either this administration or the next, because the demand for lithium is not going away, and the US have virtually no supply. So a bright future for lithium commodity prices and anyone who can produce any sort of lithium within the US to sort of settle the supply chain controlled by the Chinese. And talking with legislative people and senior people at the CEO forum, people now understand about the lithium supply chain, and they understand how important it is. So it's becoming a topic that's discussed in mainstream media in the US, and it wasn't that long ago that people really didn't know what lithium was. So it's very, very encouraging. People always ask me about the drilling approvals. Well, I'm over here, I'm liaising with the relevant groups. It is complicated, and be rest assured that all the directors and all the management team are very focused on getting those drilling approvals. We're heavily incentivized to grow the shareholder wealth, and we are working around the clock at getting those drilling approvals. Obviously, it's a very political issue, it's very bureaucratic, and we are moving forward. I can't give an exact time on that, but I'm encouraged by the attitude of the Bureau of Land Management, and I'm looking forward to increased assistance from NTEC. We previously announced the deal with the Navajo mining arm Brett has previously worked with that group, and I'll ask him to just detail that in a few minutes. But an extremely professional group, large company that does a lot of coal mining, and they're very excited about transitioning into the new economy by being the company that's doing the permitting out at Big Sandy and being the contract miner. And we will get them to assist with drilling approval. So I'm not in a position to provide a date. I'm very positive of how the progress is going, and I'm here in Arizona. I can't do any more, and I appreciate the shareholders are getting impatient, but when we crack the code on DLE technology for the Prairie project, and when we get drilling approvals and finalise the flow sheet for the Big Sandy project, you have two large projects in a company that will grow rapidly, and the market will sit up and have a look at these two projects, especially when Thacker Pass goes into production. And I think that's pretty much assured. Brett can give his opinion on that, but with a company as large as GM backing it to the tune of $650 million, it just shows that sedimentary lithium sector is something that will contribute to large production numbers in the future.
Yes, going back to NTech, with Simple Material, or with Thacker Pass, in my role there, we had selected North American Coal as the contract miner. Since then, a lot of the key leadership in North American Coal have moved to NTech and are now leading NTech. So it's really the second time for me working with the same group. And I cannot overstate, NTech is among the best miners in the world. Very few simultaneously win environmental and safety awards. And NTech does that repeatedly, and not just an award, but the highest awards or honors for safety and environmental in mining. So they really are world class, and we're looking forward to having them on board. I'm really lucky to be working with them again in this project, and I would expect that our progress will be every bit as fast as it was with Thacker.
I see a question there in regards to DLE technology. If you look at the Prairie project, the grade of the project is 111 milligrams per litre, and that is not as significant when it comes to brine projects. The most significant part of a brine project is its production, so its flow rates. You could have a huge grade, but you won't flow the well very well. Those wells up there in the prairies in Canada flow extremely well. There's a lot of data points to calculate a resource, and Prairie have drilled and re-entered 3 wells in total over a 26-kilometre area. So it's a huge area of lithium brines, and they have been extremely consistent over those 3 holes that they've actually re-entered. And the other data points are from previous oil and gas drilling. So we're very confident of the resource at Prairie, and we're confident that the production from the wells will be significant to allow us to produce large amounts of lithium LCE at using the DLE technology. What we are confident we will be able to break the code, but we still need to do a lot of work. Brett needs to get involved, is just fine-tuning that DLE technology. There's always a risk with every investment, and I see that one as the risk here, and we're going to mitigate that risk as soon as possible by throwing engineers and put a lot of funding into that. We would rather be funding DLE technology rather than drilling additional holes at the Prairie project, because we do have a large resource. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think with respect to the commercial application, it's not with Prairie's technology as well as many others. The recovery rate or the absorption rate for many is well over 90%. So it's with DLE technology, it's never been about absorbing enough lithium or at a fast enough rate. it really always, it's the challenges and why we've been working on it for over 10 years now has to do with the degradation, effectively the longevity of the sorbent and the cost to make the DLE sorbent. So where a lot of DLE technologies distinguish themselves or are beginning now finally to distinguish themselves is their approaches to make the DLE sorbent last longer, to not foul as quickly, and but really the lithium extraction or the amount of lithium that's absorbed is it's excellent. It's as good as really any metallurgical process at well north of 90%. It's just the focus is on how do we make it last longer and cost less to produce.
I see a question there in regards to possible partnerships with Tesla. Tesla pretty much are a big player in our industry. They talk to a lot of players, and they're pretty tight with their CAs. So I really can't comment on that, but they need a lot of lithium going forward, and Musk has made many comments in regards to that. So I'll allow you to make your own conclusion on that one. Do you want to answer one about the tech?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's meant by what about developing details on developing the tech associated with the sediments. Maybe that's sedimentary. So really, what we're focusing on there that is unique to us versus any of the sedimentary operations out there is we are, sulfuric acid has been used to extract elements from sedimentary ore for over 100 years, most successfully, most notably in the production of phosphoric acid, where sulfuric acid is used to extract a phosphate from the rock. We're doing the same thing with lithium, but sulfuric acid require a lot of it, and it's not inexpensive, and we have to bring sulfur from long distances to our site. So with Chemvita, one of the advancements we're looking at is the use of biolixiviants. So this is an alternative to sulfuric acid that is also more selective than sulfuric acid, that attacks the particle in a way where we can release more lithium and consume less of the material, less of the lixiviant that goes to dissolving magnesium or calcium or iron, aluminum, things that we would prefer not to dissolve along with the lithium. So we are working on that front. In fact, Chemvita will be working here with us. They'll have office space and they'll have facilities here where they're working alongside us, and that'll get going this year. And then, the other thing we're looking at is DLE does have an application for sedimentary projects as well. Now, it's not necessary, as with most sedimentary projects, you can remove the impurities simply by increasing pH with a lot of lime, and you can remove all the purities as hydroxides and as other compounds. However, if you use DLE after the leaching process, you can selectively remove the lithium from that large liquor stream, strip it, and you have a much higher concentrated stream that you did not have to use huge amounts of lime to remove all the magnesium and the iron and the other cations before extracting the lithium. So, DLE literally can touch every project in the world, not just a brine operation that can evaporate, but it can also supplement or help the cash operating cost of sedimentary clay or even spodumene. So that's one of the other interests in our main interest in Prairie is that this technology is applicable to all flow sheets across the board, not just a brine operation that can't use sunlight to evaporate.
Thanks, Brian from Saskatchewan, for your question. The brief answer to that is that I've done a lot of mergers and acquisitions in my career, and if you want to take advantage of the synergies, you move quickly. So at this strategy session we've had the last 3 days, we are going to change the name of Prairie, and they will be operating under the name of Arizona Lithium, because we are combining the two companies and we want to take advantage of all those benefits of combining the two groups with two very exciting development projects.
With respect to the question on geothermal heating, there obviously is some heat associated with the brine at Prairie Lithium. Not nearly as much as you would need to convert that heat into to produce steam, to produce electricity, at least not on a very large scale. But that heat can be useful, and things we will look at in the flow sheet. But it's also very important to keep that heat in the brine at Prairie, because if you lose too much, then things begin to precipitate from that brine and really plug things up and cause a lot of grief. So it's possible we can remove some heat from the brine to produce energy, but you can't remove too much, or you can really create a lot of problems for yourself.
Gerard's question in regards to a timeline to production for both projects, they vary significantly, and that's one of the reasons we were attracted to the Prairie acquisition. And rather than be doing feasibility studies, DFSs, PFSs, the Prairie Lithium project lends itself to putting a module into the field, and that's a proof of concept of your DLE technology once you've got comfortable with that technology. And that is a cost of about $20 to $30 million. And that's a big attraction to this project. If you compare it to the Big Sandy project, Brett is building out the LRC. Part of that LRC is basically a pilot plant. And when you get those numbers looking really good and you finalise your flow sheet, you start the studies on such a large project as Big Sandy. You spend a lot of money on studies, and then you go to production. But the production cost, the cap cost on a project like the Big Sandy is going to be substantial. You need a sulfuric acid plant. So you're talking, $650, $700 million. But in a market where the demand for lithium is so huge, I don't see the problem with raising that when we get to that stage. But in the intervening period, we can fast track the production of the Prairie Lithium project using the modular format. So as soon as we get one module in the field and producing the way we want it to be producing, we can bolt on additional modules based on how many wells we have in place. And that's something that can create substantial wealth for our shareholders, because it comes from such a low capital cost compared to the Big Sandy project. What else have we got?
I think Giuseppe has got another DLE question. I may have answered this to some extent with the previous question. So the DLE is very, very helpful to Big Sandy, but it is by no means necessary in the Big Sandy flow sheet. So whether DLE was ready tomorrow or not, it would only have an impact to Big Sandy to the extent Big Sandy is permitted and ready to move forward with the design. So it's ideally the technology will be developed. Prairie would be operational with their well at that point, and we would already have wonderful real world information that we could incorporate into the design of Big Sandy, which would almost certainly come later. But they really are not necessarily linked. We can build Big Sandy just fine without DLE, but DLE would definitely lower our costs and be beneficial.
In regards to news flow and what's coming up next for the company, obviously we're focused on drilling approvals, but we're also focused on completing the transaction for Prairie Lithium. 14th of March, the shareholders approve that. We complete the transaction, and then we amalgamate the two companies. And we're very focused on that. And then you'll start to see some interesting news coming out of Prairie, the Prairie project. And by that stage, Brett will have the Lithium Research Centre in full swing, and we'll have a number of announcements associated with that. We had a video guy here yesterday taking some shots, and we'll share that with shareholders in the future. And we're down the track on our DFS for the Big Sandy project, remembering that we have a 12-year mine life already from the maiden drill program out at Big Sandy. And as soon as we get approvals, we're back out there drilling. And everyone loves to see a lithium company drilling, but the focus or the risk factor really on the Big Sandy is its processing, not its resource. The Prairie guys were out there today. and they were impressed by the sheer size of the project. You can't help but be impressed because it goes for 14 kilometres and it's very consistent, subject to further drilling. So that's effectively our news flow in the future. We have an investment in Midwest Lithium, and Matt Blumberg, our executive director, is on that board. We will work hard with those guys to bring them to market with an ASX listing, and hopefully we can allow our shareholders to share in that upside associated with that Black Hills area of South Dakota. And in fact, Brett was born in that area, so he knows a little bit about it. So you might be able to swing in there. We don't want to stretch him too thin, but interesting that they have some very good ground, and our geological team was very attracted to that project. So we look forward to working with the guys, and obviously having Matt on the board, but the guys at Midwest, and bringing them to market as an ASX listed company. I see one question there about water issues, and I think shareholders will be very interested in that. An economist spoke at the CEO forum, and he said that as Arizona expands, particularly Phoenix, they actually don't use any more water because it goes from agricultural to residential, and agriculture is very inefficient with its water use. So he was saying that water isn't an issue in this state. Now, we all know that the Colorado River was drying up last summer. There's been some massive snowfalls this year, and we see water as something that can be quite expensive. We're building it into our capital costs, but we can recycle a lot of our water, and we won't be a massive user of water as compared to other mining projects. We are effectively strip mining at surface, and a lot of the water can be recycled. Good question in regards to the research facility, and it's something that we've been discussing over our 3-day strategy session with the Prairie people. And always the focus is on maximising shareholder returns. So what can be done at the Lithium Research Centre more efficiently will be done at the Lithium Research Centre. The movement of materials and samples, etc., are quite simple from Regina, Saskatchewan sort of area to Phoenix, and Prairie have built up a team of lithium people up there. So as we merge the companies, we'll evaluate that in detail, but the Lithium Research Centre has state-of-the-art equipment, as Brett has previously said. So a lot of that work will move down to the Lithium Research Centre, I would suggest. But it's nice to have the staff up there and the technology to develop the DLE can be happening at both places at the same time. Any question for you?
Yeah, this is from Ian. Prairie is definitely has less barriers with respect to permitting and mine development. You know, obviously, with wells are quite a bit different than mining, but with any project in the world right now using DLE, the challenge is finishing development of the DLE, and then once that's done, is you really have to create a supply chain or production of the direct lithium extraction sorbent. So that's, you know, there is no manufacturing process or no manufacturer that we can go to that produces DLE. So this really kind of forces the miner or the owner of the resource to you know, either implement or develop that manufacturing process, going back into the supply chain, potentially even as far as mining the components that go into the DLE. So that's really the aspect that a lot of companies, not only Prairie, are kind of on right now, is they have technology that works. Really, it's about answering the question, how long does it work for, and how much does it cost? What's the best way to produce the DLE sorbent? So that's really what's going to be a primary focus of ours, really over the next 6 months to a year, is is finishing the development of the sorbent, test it thoroughly, and then determine what the manufacturing process, the least expensive manufacturing process for that sorbent, so we can produce it at commercial scale and distribute it to our production wells and to other resources we may have at that time that we use DLE.
Arnfin, thank you for your question in regards to North American Stock Exchange. I've been talking to investors in the US for about 7 years in regards to the Big Sandy project. We did list on the OTC QB exchange, which we get a little bit of volume on that. So that's been quite successful for us. But we do have a plan once we've merged the two companies together to go down the NASDAQ listing. And we've already talked to NASDAQ, and it would appear that that's, it's a 6 to 9 month process, but we've already started preparing for that. Thank you.
I think that might be all the questions that we've got, and thank you for the very detailed update. Should webinar attendees have further questions for management, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of the ASX releases. But thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you, shareholders.
Thank you.
Thank you, investors.